All right. Well, again, this is Library Resources for CTV505. If you'd like to follow along on your own computers, go ahead and log in, fire up Internet Explorer or Firefox, the browser of your choice. And let's see, I think everyone's got one of the first handouts there. We'll be working from that during most of our presentation today. And again, just want to underscore that the reference librarians are here to help you with your research at any point. You feel free to visit us at the reference desk if you're here on campus. You can also contact the reference desk by telephone. Those numbers are listed there at the top of your handout. We have a local telephone number. We also have an 800 telephone number, 888-249-1822 to contact the reference desk. You can also send questions to us by email. We usually respond the same day, same business day. If it's over the weekend, there may be a little bit of a lag time there. And we also have an instant messenger account. So if you're into IM and you want to add us to your buddy list, we're at Regent U Library. And you can access that through AOL, Google Talk, MSN, or Yahoo, any of those particular networks. Again, my name is John Ritterbusch. I'm your library liaison. And feel free to contact me if you would like to set up a one-on-one research consultation. It could be 15 minutes. It could be 90 minutes. However much time you'd like to set aside for doing research and going through some of these databases and finding resources, critiques, criticisms, or reviews for your paper, please feel free to do that. You can contact me. My office telephone is 226-2985. Email address is jritterbusch@regent.edu, and I'm also on IM and Facebook. If you want to add me to your friend list or contact me through any of those settings, I'm on AOL, MSN, or Yahoo in addition to Facebook. My handle on those networks is ComArtsLibrarian. Now, some of the key databases that we'll be looking at today, I've tried to bookmark in Delicious. You've got that link printed on your handout here about halfway down the page. There are about 15 databases in total that I have bookmarked and tagged as being most relevant to this particular class for finding reviews or criticisms of cinema or television programs in particular. So that would be delicious.com/ComArtsLibrarian. That's where you could view all of my 200 and some bookmarks of web resources. And then if you add /CTV505 plus databases, you'll view that short list of databases that would be most relevant to your class. We're going to explore just a few of those databases in detail this morning, and I'll demonstrate those in the web browser in just a moment. But first, before I get into that, I'd like to ask, maybe just for a show of hands, how many of you have had the opportunity to go through the library course in Blackboard already, maybe even finish it? Wonderful. I'm seeing a lot of hands. That's great. Those of you who haven't finished it yet, are you already registered for the class? Okay, great, good. I wanted to make sure that your advisor had encouraged you to do that right away this first semester. Our presentation this morning is going to build on a lot of the skills that are outlined in that Blackboard course. If you haven't been in there already, that Blackboard course will cover details such as how to use the library catalog, some of our basic full-text databases, how to use the full-text journal finder to find out which database has full-text access to a particular journal or magazine. It will cover interlibrary loan and even how to cite your articles and avoid nasty things like plagiarism. So we cover a lot of ground in that class. Most students find it takes maybe 2 hours to work through the material and through those quizzes. And it's really to your benefit to do that now, early in the semester. Just get that out of the way so you're not worrying about it at the end of the semester and missing the deadline. And then you can benefit from the research tips that are built into that class. But today's class, we're gonna leapfrog over those topics and get into more detail on a few specific databases that I think will be helpful to your class and to the assignments in this class. And specifically these three databases: Film Index International, International Index to the Performing Arts, and Film and Television Literature Index. Again, these are highlighted here on your handout toward the bottom, and we'll spend some time here in a web browser if you'd like to follow along here in Firefox. And our starting point here is the library homepage. If you haven't been here already, our website address is regent.edu/general/library. Most of the, if not all of the computers here in the lab and other labs on campus will also have a shortcut on the desktop of these computers once you log in, labeled just library. Most of your time, I think, after today's class will be spent in one of two areas, probably. Under the Research Tools heading on the library homepage, you'll see a link to Ask a Librarian. Again, that will take you to a page that explains how you can get in touch with the reference desk by phone, email, in person, etc. You also have links here to the library catalog to search for books or videos. We have a very sizable DVD and VHS video collection over at the library in room 214. Those videos circulate for a week if you want to check those out. It doesn't necessarily have to be for educational purposes either for this class. We've got a large feature film collection, so maybe just for the weekend, instead of waiting for Netflix or hitting up Blockbuster, you might want to check out our collection in 214 instead. A lot of our databases for articles are going to be listed under that third link. We have over 100 databases in our collection, and that can be kind of an overwhelming list to work from. So I'll show you in a moment a list that's a little more manageable in just a moment here. Other links that you may use frequently under the Research Tools section would be the Full Text Journal Finder. I'll give a demonstration of that in just a little bit. That would be how you would track down which database has a particular journal or magazine. A couple of other links that I'll highlight here, the library classes and tutorials link. If you're looking for information about how to register for the library class, if you haven't done that already, there is information under this page. And finally here, RefWorks. We may squeeze in at the end of the class a little bit of a demonstration of RefWorks as well. RefWorks is a citation management tool that you can use to save your sources in one online database. It's completely free to you as a Regent student. And the benefit of using RefWorks is that you can easily crank out a list of works cited in MLA, APA, any number of formats without having to flip through that MLA manual or other style books, get the periods and the colons in all the right places. RefWorks will do that for you. We may have time to demonstrate that in a little more detail as we get into the class here. The link I'd like to really spotlight here on our homepage for the comm students is this one under Subjects. And you'll notice we have links for a number of subject areas. These all correspond to the different schools to which we have library liaisons and graduate programs here at Regent University. There's one here for Communication and Arts. And I'll click on that and pull up this particular page. It has my mugshot on there and all my contact information, which I highlighted earlier, including email, IM, and a Facebook link. I even maintain a little blog on WordPress if you want to check that out at some point. I blog on a variety of topics related to technology and learning, and also communication and arts type of topics that I think may be of interest to faculty and students in this school. But the links further down the page here I want to highlight. I'll mention briefly here, I have a kind of what's called a tag cloud of websites that I've bookmarked on various topics. You can see here prominently, meaning that there are a lot of links classified under CTV505. I'm just going to right-click on that and open it in a new tab here in Firefox and show you within Delicious, I've got, it looks like 25 bookmarks here that correspond to CTV505, most of which are going to be databases, library databases on articles. There are other websites, though, that I've come across over time that I thought would be of interest to students in this class. Christian Spotlight on Entertainment, for example. Dissertations and theses within the subject area of theater or motion pictures, as an example. So I won't spend a lot of time on this. I just mentioned that that tag cloud is here, and how that works in some here. You could view other websites related to journalism, to cinema is very big and bold, so I've got a lot of websites with that particular tag. If you're looking for websites that help you citing sources in your paper, you might use this particular tag for citations. It'll pull up a list of websites that maybe give you kind of a cheat sheet on how to format your sources within APA or MLA. There's a website called Citation Machine that you can use to plug in a source, and it'll basically return the correct format that you choose. There's a link again to RefWorks that we provide here at Regent University at no charge. So those sources are all available in that tag cloud. I'm going to go back here to that ComArts webpage, though, and click on databases, because this is where we'll be spending the lion's share of our time this morning. In fact, you may even want to bookmark this page within your browser if you're following along here. Go ahead and do that, because we'll be kind of bouncing back to this page frequently here during the course of our session this morning. Now, on your handout, one of the databases that I mentioned starting off here, that first one bulleted here is Film Index International. And Film Index International is a database that I've classified as something of a starting resource. By starting resources, I mean this is kind of think of it as maybe an encyclopedia or a database that provides a quick summary of information. It's not going to be an article in and of itself, but a quick way to maybe find other articles that would be relevant to your paper topic or to the films that you're studying this semester. So I'm going to click on Film Index International here. And I've increased the font size here. It looks a little bit ugly, but for the benefit of the camera here, hopefully everybody can read that even in the back there. This gives a little more information about this database. It's developed by the British Film Institute. I want you to think of this database as Internet Movie Database, which you've probably used before, imdb.com. Think of this database as IMDb on steroids, if you will, because you'll see here it's got a lot of additional information that IMDb does not provide. I'll click on the Connect button here. If you're on campus or off campus, in many cases you'll need to log in. I've kind of bypassed that for this morning's session here so that you won't have to hit that here in the computer lab. But usually you will see a login prompt. You'll need to enter your Regent ID and password. That's the same login you would use for Blackboard or email. Nothing different there. If you do have a problem logging in, please contact us at the reference desk and we can try to help troubleshoot that. We may refer you to the computer help desk, but we're happy to serve as kind of that front line of support for getting logged in. I'm here on the Film Index online database, which includes Film Index International and also the American Film Institute catalog. Really, it's two separate databases in one search screen here. And I have a quick search form here, kind of like Google. And for demonstration purposes here, I'm going to do a search on The Mission. I'll leave the initial article off and click Go. And search results are coming up here. And I'm going to click under Film Index International. I'm going to click on all results in this category here. I may need to fine-tune my search just a little bit because I'm getting so many results here. And it sorts my results here in alphabetical order, starting with numbers and then the letter A after that. I'm going to try to go to link 5 here, and we'll see if we get into the M's in the middle of the alphabet here. Looks like I've got a ways to go yet. But you can see here, even in this first batch of search results, I'm searching across movies all the way back to 1893 to 2007. And there are a couple of other films which have the title of Mission. Of course, Mission Impossible kind of jumps out there in the search results, but a few other titles as well. The one that I know will be featured in your course this semester is the 1986 featuring Robert De Niro, and it's number 404 here in the search results. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that particular result, and I think then you'll see what I mean by IMDb on steroids in just a moment here as we look at the full details. When I look at the full record for this database, of course you'll see the director and the year, the production company right at the top, as well as a synopsis of this particular film. You also see a complete list of the cast. All of these names of the actors and actresses, I'd forgotten Liam Neeson is in this movie. You could click on these hyperlinks and then pull up a list of other cinematic productions in which that actor has appeared. I'll just right-click on his name, Liam Neeson, here to open that in a new tab and kind of show you what that looks like here. Now I've got a kind of a biographical summary for Liam Neeson here, his date of birth, where he was born, and a complete filmography of his works, including references to Liam Neeson in various periodicals and scholarly journals. I'm going to close that tab and go back. I'm back now at the mission. And here's where this particular database really shines. You've got the complete production list, and again, IMDb has a lot of that similar information, maybe not quite so comprehensive. But you also get then here a list of the awards for which the mission was awarded. You also have now, toward the bottom, a list of references where the mission was mentioned or reviewed or critiqued within magazines or scholarly journals. Now, these are not full-text articles within the database, but it is a helpful starting point. It's a bibliography or a list of references which do provide information about this movie and criticisms. And you'll notice here there's one as recent as April 2007. So this listing is continuing to grow over time. It really tells you a lot about the stature of this particular film within the cinema industry, that it's still being written about now 20-some years after its production. If you scroll down the list, you'll see additional references here. You'll see many more around the time frame when that movie was released in 1986. American Cinematographer, for example, Hollywood Reporter, that would be a more popular, not a scholarly resource, but a more popular reference. Screen International, American Film. I'm going to actually pick on this one here because it's a fairly lengthy article here in American Film. I'm looking at this citation. That's the journal title, American Film, its ISSN number, the publication information, volume 12, number 2, and date, November 1986. This tells me it's several pages long, and so I've got a fairly complete citation here. And although I don't have a full-text link within this database, if you've used the Journal Finder already in the Blackboard course, you may know that Journal Finder can help us find full text of that article relatively quickly. I'm going to open a new tab in my browser here. Just hit Control-T in Firefox. And I've got a shortcut in my browser for the Journal Finder here. If you want to just watch, feel free to do that. This pulls up the Journal Finder. Again, this is linked from the library homepage. And it's also mentioned in our Blackboard course. What I'm going to do is paste in the journal title that I found within that first database, Film Index International, and click Search. And very quickly, the Journal Finder will tell me which, if any, databases have full-text access to this source. As it turns out, we don't have any other databases that have full-text access, but I do have a link here that suggests our library for a print copy of this journal. If I click on this link, you may notice a third tab opens up in my browser. And at this point, I can see which issues are available in print or in microform at the library. This would be a physical copy. And that article, I remember in Film Index International, that article, if I go back over here, I was looking for an article published in November of 1986. Well, as it turns out, we have a print copy of that journal over at the library from 1986. We cover 78 to 92 in a print copy. We also have microfilm copies for some older issues from 75 to 78. So if we wanted to use that article, we need to hoof it over into the library and either photocopy that article or take notes from that bound journal. I'll mention for the benefit of our distance students that we can also photocopy those articles and send those to you electronically. If you live outside the 757 area code, you can do that through Iliad, through our interlibrary loan program, and our staff are more than happy to photocopy those articles, send that to you as a PDF file. We can usually do that within 48 hours and get that to you very quickly. Let me pause for just a moment and ask if there are any questions about what I've covered so far. I've kind of springboarded from one web page to another. I don't want to cover too much ground too quickly. I want to make sure everyone understands the steps that I'm following here. Doing okay so far? All right. I don't see anyone nodding off yet, so I'll count that as a good sign. The room's a bit warm this morning. I apologize for that. I'm going to go back here to Film Index International, and I'll do one more search here since we have a little bit of time. I'll do another film search in Film Indexes Online. This pulls up a more advanced search form. As you can tell, I could search by keyword or film title. I could narrow the scope of the years that I'm looking across. So what I'll do here is Seventh Seal as the film title, and you'll notice I'm using quotation marks in this particular search. And that's a little tip you may want to keep in mind for many of our databases and even for searching Google. If you use quotation marks, you can do what's called a phrase search, meaning you'll search for these two words in that exact order within a particular record. By doing that, you can really screen out a lot of extraneous results. You won't get quite so many results to have to sift through. So I'm going to execute that search on Seventh Seal. AFI catalog came up with 0 records, but I did come up with one result in Film Index International. And although this is in a different language, I think maybe Swedish, if I click on that link, that is the 1957 release, alternate title, The Seventh Seal. And again, it provides additional information, including the country where that film was produced, Sweden, and the synopsis, in addition to all the cast information. And down here at the bottom, again, I start getting a list of references where this particular film has been cited in critiques or reviews, or maybe comparing another film to The Seventh Seal. So, although this is a kind of a bare bones database, what I call a starting tool or reference tool, keep in mind with those references at the bottom of each entry, you've got a built-in bibliography that you can start from on most any film ever produced, at least in the Western world, covering Great Britain, American films, European films for the large part. Not so many Eastern titles unless they've been more recently shown in Western theaters, maybe with subtitles and things like that. So older Eastern films probably will not be covered in this database, but most of the Western films will be. All right, I'm going to take a step back here to that database page for communication and arts and spend a little bit more time delving into an article database, which those are a little further down the screen here. Under journal articles, I have an alphabetical list of databases pertaining to journals, scholarly journals, and popular magazines. And I want to take a few minutes to look at International Index to the Performing Arts. I'm going to click on this link and then click on Connect. This particular database is a particularly strong resource to keep in mind for your research because unlike Film Index International, it does provide full text access to a lot of scholarly journals and magazines. As you can see even here on the description on the home page, it covers nearly 500,000 articles, in some cases going way back to 1864 in topics related to theater and dance and other areas of the performing arts. However, it does cover a number of journals related to cinema studies and television studies, and that's why I want to spend a few minutes highlighting this particular resource. You'll notice at the top that this database has a quick search form, again like Film Index International and Google. But I want to make a special note to encourage you to use search articles instead. And you may want to even jot that down on your handout there. The reason why, when I click on search articles, is that you'll get a number of additional search options available to you that can help to narrow down your search results a lot more quickly. For example, you can narrow your results to just full text articles using the checkbox at the top here. You can also narrow it to peer-reviewed articles, scholarly journals, which I know that Professor Quick would be very keen on seeing in your list of references cited. So there are some additional features within the search articles form that I think would be particularly beneficial to you. I'm going to do a search here. I'm going to keep things really broad, though, on this search initially here. I'm going to do a search on Thin Blue Line, which I know is another one of the films featured in your syllabus this semester. Again, I'm using quotation marks to search for that as a phrase. And my search button is kind of overridden here. All you see is the RCH because I have the font size so large here. But there's a search button here. That red button, I'm going to click on that. And we should start seeing some results here pretty quickly. And right off the bat, I have, under Thin Blue Line as a phrase, I have 98 results. These are sorted by relevance. I could also resort these by the date of publication to most recent record first, and then click Sort. And as recently as this summer, apparently there may be a reference to that particular film appearing in CineEast. And in each of these records, again, you'll notice there's a citation, pretty standard information on each article. You've got the article author, you've got the article title, the journal in which that article appeared, and the publication date and page numbers. This was just a 2-page article in this case. For a lot of these articles, you'll also notice now we've got full text links. One has a little, what looks like maybe a Word document icon. If I click on that, I'll get what's basically just the plain HTML text of that article. No additional pictures, charts, graphs, and usually no page numbers included in this view. So it's kind of a nice way to just quickly scan an article. If you wanted to view for maybe references to Morris, as in Earl Morris, you could do that right within your web browser and highlight those words so you can see where those words show up. I'm using Firefox for this particular option. Internet Explorer does the same thing. But I think you'll find in many cases, whenever you have the option to use that PDF link, you'll want to do that. And I'll try to open this up. I had a snafu the first time this launched here. Good. This time I think we're in business. In that the advantage of using the PDF, I'm going to ignore that warning because I think it'll close the PDF on me. The advantage you can see here of using the PDF is that you get the benefit of any pictures and captions, and even more importantly, you get page numbers, usually in the corner of those pages. So if you were extracting a quote from this particular article and want to use that in your paper, and to properly cite that quotation, you would need to use the page number, and that's where the PDF becomes particularly invaluable. So I think, yeah, there goes the PDF on this computer. But you shouldn't have that problem on your own setup there, and make use of that PDF whenever possible. I'll also mention you have some other options here within the full record of the article here. Again, this should appear in the citation or the full text view, either one. You have the options to email articles to yourself, to reformat it for printing as well. You can download the citation. I'll click on that link. You can download those citations into a citation management tool. If you've used EndNote or ProCite in the past, maybe you own a copy of that, you can download that citation into that software. You can also export a citation directly into RefWorks. And again, RefWorks is a program that our library subscribes to. It's freely available to all students of Regent University. The benefit of using RefWorks or any of these citation tools is that at the end of working on your paper, you can easily select the sources that you've used and spit out a quick formatted list of references in MLA format or APA, Chicago, Turabian, doesn't matter, and copy that into the end of your paper. You're not having to crank that out manually, so it can be a real time saver if you get to learn to use RefWorks. And I'll talk more about that in just a little bit. Let's see here. I think I'm going to click back here to search results. And I'll mention one other thing here about, well, two other things actually about the list of results that you see here. Along the way, you'll notice that you've got a checkbox here option to add to a marked list. So as you're scanning these results and looking at their abstracts, finding articles that maybe are particularly relevant to your paper, you can just check those boxes, and in effect you're adding it to a shopping cart. At the top of the results page is a link for marked list, and by clicking on that, now I'm looking at only these 4 articles that I've checked so far. And again, I can email, print, download. I could even save them to a personal archive within this database. You can create an account within this database and save these articles. You can save searches within this database and come back to it at a later time if you want to do that. So you have all of those options available to you. I'll go back to my search history here. I'm going to pull up my full list of 98 articles here. I'd like to just demonstrate one other thing. I'm hoping to find an article here without full text. So far, I haven't come across any just yet. That's a lot of full text. I probably have to go further into my results here. Just bear with me one moment here. I tried a different search the first time around. Here we go. I'm going to look at number 61. And if you want, just follow along on the screen here if you're not looking at the same list of results here. Number 61 is an example of an article where IIPA actually doesn't have full text built in. And the reason I can tell you that is because I see this icon here for what's called the article linker. I'm going to click on this icon, and what it will open up here is another window to our full text journal finder. And what the journal finder will try to do is match up this article citation to our list of databases and tell us if maybe another full text database has that article available. This is from the journal called Shoot. Looks like a pretty short article, just one page, page 48. And in the results here, I'm seeing, sorry, no results. None of our other full text databases apparently has this particular magazine or journal in full text. Don't let that be the stopping point for your quest for this article. And the reason I say that is because we have a wonderful interlibrary loan department with staff that do nothing but obtain books and articles from other libraries that our students need to have access to. And if you look down here under more full text options, one of those options is to submit an interlibrary loan request. I'm going to click on that link to log in to what we call Iliad. Iliad is our interlibrary loan system that you can use, no charge, to request books and articles. And I'm going to go ahead and log in. And just like that, you can see I've got a request form automatically filled out. It's got the journal title, it's got the date of publication, even the ISSN number and article author and title here. Really, the only thing I need to do at this point is click the Submit Request button, and this request would go to our ILL staff right now. Very likely they would start processing it today. And in a lot of cases, we can get articles to you within 24 to 48 business hours. It's a very quick turnaround time. Not in every case, but in most instances. For books, if we need to get a book from another library, I would recommend allowing at least a week of lead time, because obviously that book can't be shipped electronically. It has to go through snail mail or UPS, so it may be a few days delay on that. But please don't let just the fact that we don't have an article in full text in a database keep you from using a particular resource if that's what you need for your papers, okay? As long as you allow more than 24 hours, if you don't put off your paper until the night before, I know none of us have ever done that. As long as you give yourself a little lead time, you'll be in good shape, and you can use interlibrary loan to get those articles. Any questions about this process? I want to make sure I leave time for questions here about ILL and that process. And that goes especially for the distance students as well. Interlibrary loan, we can get articles to you. I've mentioned already we can photocopy articles from journals in our own library, send them to you. We can get articles from other libraries. And for distance students, we will even ship our books from Regent Library to your own address. And you would just need to pay for the shipping cost to send those back to Regent University. Yes, sir, a question?
Username and password?
Good question. On setting up an account within ILLiad, at the moment, right now, you can use any username or password you like. We are not tied into the university authentication system that way yet. However, having said that, I do usually recommend you use the same username and password that you use for your email and Blackboard and the databases. It's just one less thing you need to try to remember. Yeah, so that works a whole lot better. Yeah, good question. If time allows, we'll give some time at the end of the class to allow you to set up an ILLiad account before the top of the hour here. I'm going to just take another minute to point out a feature here within IIPA because it's such an important feature, and that is the ability to filter your results within your searches here. And again, so long as you use search articles to do that initial search and not the quick search form, but use search articles, you'll have this option to filter your results in more detail. I've got 98 articles with thin blue lines showing up somewhere in the abstract or the citation. But let's say I want to look for maybe some film reviews specifically. If I go here under Filter Results to Document Type, click that plus sign, that menu will drop down, and now you start to see some additional options here. There's the option to filter articles by commentary. You can also look for favorable reviews or biographical profiles. If I show all, it'll show an even more detailed list here in this little pop-up window. Television reviews, favorable television reviews. So a lot of options for filtering those results in more detail. That can really help if you've got a large number of results to sift through and you want to get to the best stuff. I'm just going to pick on research and analysis here as an example. I've got 6 results now from the journal Framework. This first one shows up. Postscript, Essays in Film and the Humanities. Many of these I would suspect are going to qualify as academic or scholarly journals, which in shorthand will make Professor Quick very happy if he sees those kinds of sources on your list of references in your papers. So these are the kinds of things to look for, not the quick reviews from the New York Times necessarily or Time magazine, but academic journals. So keep those in mind. I could filter by language, by journal, by date. A whole slew of options are available within that filter results section. So I wanted to take a moment to highlight that. Any other questions about the IIPA database? This will be, I think, a frequently used database for this class and others yet to come during the course of your academic career here at Regent. So I wanted to devote plenty of time to this database and make sure if you had any questions that those are answered. All right. Okay. Well, we'll have a little more time for Q&A too at the end of our session here. I'm going to shift gears a little bit and spend some time talking about another database here, that being Film and Television Literature Index. Again, that's going to be a database listed on this list of databases in Communication and Arts under the Journal Articles section. It also appears on our longer A to Z list of databases, which is linked from the library homepage. And Film and Television Literature Index is right here. I'm going to follow this link and click on Connect. Now, the advantage of searching more than one database, I know it's easy to fall into the trap of just relying on one database all the time for your research. But the advantage of keeping other databases in mind is because different databases will search different sets of journals. That's why we subscribe to 100 different databases. It's not that we necessarily have a lot of money to spend. It's because each database really covers its own particular area of expertise, and each database also has a particular segment of journals that they have access to. So I'm going to use Film and Television Literature Index. It has a totally different look and feel to this database, but I wanted to demonstrate some of the results that are available within this particular tool. I'm going to repeat my search on thin blue line just for the purposes of comparison here. So again, I'm using quotation marks to search for articles referencing that movie, or at least that title as a phrase, and I will click on search here, just keep things wide open to get as many results as possible. I get 86 articles in total here. I'm looking near the top of the search results here. 1 through 10 of 86 are displayed on this first screen. Many of these initial results that you'll see here, and these are in chronological order. Here's a reference to an article in Movie Maker from January of 2008. You'll see a larger number of these references are citation and abstract only, meaning if I were to click on these articles, all I would see is, again, the citation, where did this article appear, some subject terms, and a very brief abstract, very brief in this case, of the article. It does not have full text built in on this particular article. If I wanted to track down the full text, you'll notice it's a little bit subtle down here. There's a link that says Find Full Text here. If I click on that, I'll be redirected to, again, our journal finder, which will let me know if we have access to the journal documentary in one of our other databases. In this case, we don't, so this would be another candidate, perhaps for interlibrary loan. It looks like a pretty short article, so we'd have to weigh whether maybe that's really useful to us or not. I'll go back to our result list here. That one did not have full text, but number 6 here apparently does. We've got some full text links. HTML and PDF copies are available, so there will be some PDF within this database, probably not quite as much as IIPA. But we'll cover other titles here that may not be covered within the IIPA database, like Video Business, for example, might be one of those titles that doesn't show up in IIPA. So that's one to keep in mind. You also have the option, if I scroll back toward the top of these results, on the left and the right side of the page, you've got options to filter your results, a lot like IIPA would allow you to do. If I click on academic journals, for example, this will filter my results to a much smaller number. In this case, only 6 articles appeared in what are considered scholarly or academic journals. The Journal of Cinema and Media, for example, is one of those. Actually, it's Framework is the title of that journal. Postscript is another one, and that shows up a couple of times. Film Quarterly, and so on and so forth. So I think you'll see, if you were to compare the results on both of these databases, some different journals showing up in the results. I'll go back now to all results, back to all 86. And I can fine-tune my results by other subjects here. If I want to find articles that referenced Errol Morris specifically as the director or producer of that movie, now I'm down to 24 articles. And if you look here in this green bar, again, it's sometimes lost or a little bit subtle in all the information on the page. But you'll notice that as I add additional criteria here, or subjects or categories, this line gets a little bit longer, and my list of results will start to get smaller. So I'm narrowing down the results. I can drop these categories, or these filters, I should say, by clicking on that little X, and it'll scope back out to a broader set of results. So as you can see, the more filters you add, the smaller the results set that you'll start to see on your screen there. I also have options along the right. If I wanted to narrow my results to just those articles that have full text within this database, I can check that box and click Update Results. And actually, I've narrowed it so far, I get no results are found now. I'd scoped it way too narrow, so at this point I would need to go back into my search history. And I could view, as I've progressed here through all these different variations of my searches, those numbers, and go back to the initial set of 86 search results. Any questions about this database or the interface? Again, this will cover different journals. Don't get stuck in the rut or the trap of just using one database. At least use two or three. Particularly these two I would recommend if you're doing any research for this class, looking for reviews and criticisms. It would be a time well spent. And I want to save a little time here toward the end of our class and shift away from some of the databases that we've demonstrated so far and talk about a few others that I've listed on the back of your handout. If you flip this page over, I'm going to shift gears here for just a moment and get back to the PowerPoint show and just mention a few other databases. We've only scratched the surface this morning. I've demonstrated 3 databases in total, but there are others that I would strongly encourage you to keep in mind. The first of which, at the top of the back of that handout, is a database that most people, at least in the library, might think of as a divinity database or a religion database. A lot of our divinity students use this database called ATLA, that's A-T-L-A. But I tell you, there are a lot of great articles in ATLA that I think would be useful to your research, particularly for examining cinema and doing film studies from a theological perspective, from a Christian worldview, also from a secular philosophical worldview. Those will be articles that will not show up, most likely, in IIPA or in Film and Television Literature Index because, again, ATLA covers a totally different realm of journals, mostly theological and religious and philosophical journals. I've put an example search or two on your handout there. If you want to try that out on your own, do a search on ATLA by Schindler's List, for example, and you'll be amazed how many results you'll see in this divinity database show up with references that really dig into the theology and the philosophy that underscore the symbolism that's included within Schindler's List and the historical references. So keep ATLA in mind. Keep that in your back pocket because it's almost like it's a secret weapon for finding some really great articles from a Christian worldview that a lot of the other databases maybe won't address. So keep ATLA in mind. I do list a few other tools on your handout, including historical newspapers online. I don't have time to demonstrate that today, but if you're looking for reviews of particularly cinematic productions or theatrical adaptations, whether before or after the film was released, historical newspapers is a great database to keep in mind. It covers the New York Times back to 1851, the LA Times, Washington Post, back well into the early part of the 20th century. It's got PDF access to those newspapers. So keep that one in mind as well. I want to spend just a couple of minutes here, again, going back to Iliad. If I switch back to my browser here and just talk about that for a moment here. I'm going to go to the library homepage and just underscore where Iliad is available for all of our students. That link is accessible under the Library Services section of the homepage. It's called Interlibrary Loan Iliad in parentheses. If you click on that link, you'll pull up a page with the contact information for our Interlibrary Loan Department. They work generally 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. You can contact them by phone or email if you have a question about that service. You can also contact us at the reference desk. We're more than happy to help you get started through the process of setting up an account. We can't answer detailed questions about the status of maybe your request, but if our office is open during business hours, we'll connect you to them to answer those questions. Down here in this yellow box here, the bulleted link that says register to use Iliad, I'm going to click on that. There's a lot of verbiage here. Don't feel like you need to read this all verbatim. I'll try to summarize here what this is about. As I mentioned earlier, you can use anything you like as a username and password, but we do recommend when you create an Iliad account that you use the same username and password that you use for your Regent login to email and Blackboard. We also have information here about copyright information. Basically, please don't photocopy these articles and mass produce them, sell them on eBay, do crazy things like that. Because when we send you an article through Interlibrary Loan, it is for your own personal use only. And that's what copyright restrictions are about as they relate to Interlibrary Loan. Down here at the bottom, there is a button for first-time users to click here. This is where you would actually set up your user account within Iliad. It just takes a few minutes to do. It's a one-time only process. Asking for your contact information, your student patron ID number, which shows up here in the third box. That would be your Genesis ID number. And if you're not sure what that number is, if you log into Genesis, and I think if you click on Student Services tab, usually that shows up in the top right corner within that Genesis page. So if you fill that in there, that helps us to verify your status as a currently enrolled student. The rest of the form is pretty brief, just asking for mailing address information, and we do need that for everybody, but that will be particularly important for our distance students. Obviously, if we need to mail a book to you, that's going to be extremely important that we get that to the right place, so do take the time to fill that out. That's our Iliad system in a nutshell, and you can use Iliad to request books from other libraries, articles from other libraries. Again, our distance students have slightly different privileges. We can get articles from our library or other libraries, and we can also ship Regent library books to you. We cannot ship books from other libraries to you because of the delays in mail that would be involved, unfortunately, for our distance students. But if there's something that you need as a distance student, please contact the reference desk. We'll be happy to help you track down maybe a copy at another library that's close to you. And with that, I'd just like to kind of wrap up here and allow time to, if you want to set up an Iliad account or maybe practice some of these databases on your own, I'd be happy to answer any other questions you have. And I'd like to also ask for your feedback on this particular library seminar. If you would just give us some feedback, I have a web link here at lisurvey.notlong.com. And again, it's a very brief survey, even like the URL suggests. I really value your feedback as to how we can make this session more helpful for other students in the future. So thank you again. God bless you. Welcome to Regent University. Please feel free to contact me or any of the librarians if you have research questions or needs down the road. So thank you.